My name's George Schneider, and I live in Southern California. I'm a retired merchant marine captain. I have had some experience with the Navy, with container ships, and with tour boats, but the majority of my time has been as captain and offshore installation manager on self-propelled drilling rigs. Since retirement, I have been working on small boats, filling in as mate or even seaman. My interest in this floating heritage, which I think is a great term for it, started when I was age 11 and my parents and our family were moved on a military troop ship. And I got interested in the various military troop ships and their backgrounds. And from there, it's just expanded, particularly as I've met other people interested in the field. And those people have led me to look at more and more branches of the same activities, down to the point where now I'm paying a lot of attention to small craft that many individuals would consider non-visible, too small to consider. The term dock walking, as I see it, refers to simply going to the docks and being able to photograph and record information about maritime history. When I started back in the 60s, just about every dock was open, and even on deep water merchant ships, you were welcome to walk on board and look around, ask questions. Nobody thought twice about it. But since then, things have changed with need for security, the need for protecting assets, and all the liability having to do both with protecting those assets and also suits from people who get injured on the property. That's greatly rolled back. Now there's not a lot of waterfront you can get to, but sometimes those behind gates, you can ask permission and get inside. And when I get there, it's, in my case, mostly photography. And that's when you're up that close, often it's not good artistic photographs. But you can record information and record the details of the vessels so that if you do happen to see them in good light at another time, you'll be able to identify them even if a name is absent. And part of the dock walking is also recording what you see on each vessel. Sometimes there are numbers, or if you want to record the home port, that might later help you identify the vessel when you realize her name is Dolphin and there are 1,000 vessels named Dolphin. So that's all part of it. And I will say that in order not to make people uncomfortable, we found that it's much easier to photograph a nameplate, a number, than it is to whip out a notepad and start writing it down. That puts many people on edge. The locations you do find, it's hit or miss. You go to a waterfront, park, and see what is public access and what isn't. Looking at Google Earth or Google Maps leads you to where the public generally can get to, but you can't see fences or security lines. And then another helpful source is other people with the same interests who have been in the area. And they can often lead you to ways to get into places that weren't obvious if you would just walk up to them. The tactic I've used for not making people uncomfortable is I address them face to face, say hello. If they want to ask questions about me, I certainly am completely honest that it's a hobby and I'm taking pictures to have for my own enjoyment. If I'm taking a photograph of a boat with somebody on it, I will always go to that person and ask if it's okay with them if I take a picture. For the newcomer who wants to do this, the first thing I'd recommend is simply carrying as little as possible. If you're a photographer, take your camera, but don't have a lot of gear with you. And then besides just being friendly to the people you meet, do be careful. You certainly don't want to have an injury there, which even if you don't sue, could make them think twice about letting other people out there. And then most definitely, if there's any kind of a gate guard, explain to them who you are and ask permission to come in. And I will say here that a good tactic is to tell them something specific you want to see, not just I want to go look around. So if you say, oh, there's an old tug out there, I'd like to see her up close and see if I can identify her, that's much better than just, I want to look around. When I get this information once home, I sometimes write it up for friends. I often share it on the internet. And then what I've done my whole life is kept data and photograph materials so that in the future, if an author or just another interested person wants to know what I've seen and experienced and what details I've recorded, I have that available. Very often, getting up close to the vessels is the only way to get information on them or to get good photographs and start building the information that will be of interest in future research. I will say that if you're on a dock, even if it's a publicly open dock, please protect our reputation for all of us by getting out of the way of the people working there, the people who have vessels there, and in all cases, be polite. And if by chance somebody asks you to leave, it's best not to ask questions, argue, be very gracious and say, okay, I'm gone. I'm sorry I made you uncomfortable. And if you do that, you'll be protecting dock walking for all of us, and hopefully we'll see a big slowdown in the number of places that are being closed off to the public.